This is We Burlesque.
Hi, I'm Shimi LaRue.
This is Mimi Hurricane. And
Hi there, this is Mr. Valdez.
This is Sweaty Eddie.
Hi, this is Ivy Fairy. I am Wonder, Lust, and Pixie Dust, and you are listening to We Burlesque Season 9.
We Burlesque Season 9.
This is We Burlesque, the podcast, and I am your host, Viktor Devonne, and through the miracle of fiber optics, I get to talk to nightlife individuals in the field of burlesque, drag, and goodness gracious, who knows what else. And today is no exception, for I have Bobbie Burlesque on the line. Hello.
hi, how are you?
I'm doing all right. So just to get it out of the way, Bobbie Burlesque is such a grand title and very specific. How did you decide just burlesque?
That's actually there's actually a story behind my stage name. It never really was meant to be my stage name. I started in this crazy world of burlesque as a producer. So I was trying to think of a name for the type of show that I wanted to produce.
Mhm.
So at that time, when I first started, there wasn't that much of a variety of the shows that were out there. Like a burlesque show was kind of specific to a style. So there was like the classic burlesque show. Then there was the neo burlesque shows. Then there was kind of like the rockabilly pinup type burlesque shows. Then there was like the circus, cabaret sideshows. Um, but when I wanted to come in, I was like, well, I mine's not really classic because I like classic, so I'm gonna take some of that. I like the circus, so I'm gonna take some of that. And I love Neo, so I'm gonna take some of that. So we were trying to come up with a name to kind of identify my show. And so instead of classic burlesque or neo burlesque or rockabilly burlesque, we came up with Bobbie Burlesque, which was kind of like a mixture of all the genres that were out there without being too specific. Like I wanted my show to have a lot of variety in it. So that was how I kind of wanted to identify as my show.
Mhm.
So that's what we did. We called the show Bobbie Burlesque Presents, this show. And then I started performing after the fact. And then people would come up to me and they would say, like, oh, uh, you're Bobbie. And I was like, you're Bobbie Burlesque. And I'm like, oh, yeah, that's my show. Yeah, Bobbie Burlesque. That's my show. That's the show I produced, the burlesque show, Bobbie Burlesque. And they're like, oh, you're Bobbie. So it just kept happening like over and over. And I really didn't. And I was just like, oh, okay, yeah, sure, whatever. Just call me that. Or that's how they identified me. So perfect. Like I was all about the show. So you're going to have the show's name on your head. Perfect. And I think it wasn't until I was booked in a show that I wasn't producing and they were asking like, "Oh, like what should we put on the flyer? We were going to put you on the flyer." And at that time as well, there was a little social network that is now no longer, but it's called MySpace, right?
Yes.
Remember that social little media platform was pretty much probably like the first social media platform that was out there. Um, on They asked for that because they asked for like, oh, what's your website, because we're going to put that on the flyer too. And at that time the MySpace was like myspace.com/Bobbie Burlesque.
Mhm.
So they just thought that that was my name, so it just kind of was advertised like, oh, Bobbie Burlesque. And so then it just kind of stuck and I never changed it, and it just kind of became a thing.
But then that sort of makes me wonder then when somebody said, "Hi, I'm so and so," would you just say, "Hi, I'm just Bobbie," and just
Yeah,
leave it at that?
exactly. Like that's
Okay.
just how I go by. Like
Yeah.
everybody just calls me Bobbie. And even now, like coming back into performing, they ask me like, "Oh, what do you give us your intro?" Like, and I say, just call me Bobbie. Like, just say Bobbie. But of course, I've had the reputation of the name for so long that it just kind of stuck. So I just keep it, and I'm fine with it. So.
Was this
But yeah,
all?
but it would be.
Yeah.
I think it would be worse if I said like, stop calling me Bobbie Burlesque and just call me Bobbie, as if I'm like Cher or Madonna or Beyonce, like as if I'm better than everybody, but I'm not. So like I don't know where to go. I'm just kind of like lost in the name.
How many years ago was that when you started producing?
I started. Well, I've been a producer for a very long time. I started doing theater, so
Hmm.
I did plays and music shows, talent showcases. I did musicals. I've done a lot of other types of theatrical productions, and then it wasn't until I want to say the early 2000s, so like maybe 2000 is when I started. Um, I put together a troupe, a little modern neo burlesque troupe uh, that was actually going to be a play about a burlesque troupe. Um, and from that little troupe show, our first show was January 2002.
Hmm.
But we were like in rehearsals for like a whole 6 months before that. But our first production was in January of 2002.
That's very impressive. I mean, considering the timing of that, I mean, that would have been shortly after September 11th. So that was another change in the world. So we've had many, but for me, when I around that time I was still doing Rocky Horror in New Jersey, and then the burlesque shows came out of that, and we were asked to sort of put something together, me and my then co-director, and then I didn't really know anybody in New York or the surrounding areas. So I sort of learned people accidentally, like as I went, and not really having a mentor, sort of treating it sort of like community theater. So to have that longevity, I think is actually is very impressive. You're looking at, if you say you started in roughly 2000 to start thinking about burlesque, that's 25 years. That's a long time.
Yeah, almost there, almost at that mark. Like if you want to look at the first show, like anniversary type, record, then
Mm.
it's almost 25 years. But yeah, I've been in the industry for a long time. And then back then there wasn't, like you said, there weren't very many shows that were out there at that time. It was still a very underground type kind of scene, like it wasn't widely known as it is now.
Sure.
Even Exotic World, Burlesque Hall of Fame.
Yes.
But back then it was called Exotic
Uh-huh.
World. And to me, it will always be that because that's just the one big show that there was. And it was not even not even what everybody knows what Burlesque Hall of Fame is today. It literally was like on a farm in the desert in, on the way to Vegas. So the industry has quite changed, and like you said, longevity. I'm honored to be able to have worked in this field that long. um but yeah, it's been a journey.
Yeah. In terms of the starting point, was it always in the Los Angeles area?
Yeah, I started in LA. I'm based in Southern California, so it was all the areas. I mean, when you think of like Los Angeles, to me, I think it's like greater Los Angeles. Like there's the northern part, then there's like the beach cities, and then even as far as inland is like the Inland Empire, like Riverside, and because also too like the desert, like Hemet and stuff, that's where like Burlesque Hall of Fame was back then. So I feel like it's just been a broad range of cities and state little counties and of what we call as Los Angeles. It's just easier to say, "Oh, I'm from LA," or "I
Yeah.
produce in LA."
My mom still thinks I live in LA, I think. Even
Yeah.
as it because to her Southern California is that's just LA.
Right,
Um
right.
as opposed to I guess the rest of it, which is she probably thinks is just San Francisco. Come to... So were you always a Southern Californian? Is this where you grew up?
Yeah, I've been born and raised here, and I haven't lived anywhere else in my 40 plus years of life. I think I'm going to stay, especially in this political climate. I don't think I want to go to another state. Um, but California is expensive, but I love it. The weather is unbeatable, and I can go skiing and surfing and hiking all on the same day if I wanted
Hmm.
to. Like it's just so convenient for the great place it is. Plus also too, like I've traveled a lot with my burlesque in California. So like even going up north to like Sacramento and San Jose and San Francisco, I feel like California is just so diverse in its beauty and
Hmm.
an industry of burlesque as well. It stretches all the way up to the north, all the way down to San Diego. So it's a great state for burlesque.
Since you started in the administrative production side first, does that mean that you didn't expect to also be on stage for burlesque, or had you also been an actor? What do you think led you to also being, oh no, I also want to do this in front of everybody too?
Oh, I've always been a ham and always wanted to be in front of the stage. I grew up in musical theater and acting, so I was always in plays in school and musicals. And I call myself a theater baby. That's what we
Mm.
call ourselves, right? Like we plus I'm educated in theater because I went to school and studied theater, and you learn about burlesque in the history of American theater. So it's always been in the background of my knowledge of production and theater. um, but what the thing that I love about theater is that when you study theater, you don't just study acting or singing. You learn everything.
Mhm.
So like you learn production, you learn costumes, you learn writing, you learn about music, you learn about lights, and you do it all. You build the set, you're a prop person, you change the set. Like when you're a theater kid, you do everything in
Yeah.
theater. Um, but I was never gifted with the vocal ability to be a singer, so I was never like the lead in the musicals. I never had a solo, which I don't mind because I'm not a very good singer at all. Um, so I just always had the desire to be like behind the scenes more so. And then I
Mhm.
went to film school when I was in college, so I learned a lot about casting and like just more about the behind the scenes stuff, and that's what I really really love to do. But I'm an artist at heart and a performer and an entertainer, and I like to be in front of the stage as well, on stage, and soak in that applause. But I feel like I'm not too um I don't know what the word is, but I don't think I'm too like, if I had to choose between one or the other, I would
Mm.
choose production for sure. Which I actually did.
Sure.
Once I took a break from performing and concentrated on the show aspect of putting on collaboration, because I really love to work with other artists. Like that's my passion. Like I love working with artists, whether it's a dancer or a choreographer or a costume designer or a prop maker or a painter. Um, I just love art, and I
Mhm.
love everybody else who does art, and I want to bring everybody together and create something magnificent with all of us doing something for it. So as a producer, I feel like that's what I really love to do that.
Mhm.
Also, too, I really love to collaborate with other performers where we sit down and we have ideas together, and I help bring their ideas to life. Like, oh, what do you want to do that you've never done before on stage? Let's figure out why you haven't done it and let's do it. Oh, because you need a prop, let's call somebody who knows how to make a prop, like, oh, because you need a costume piece, well, let's go find a costumer who can make that happen.
It's a
So I feel
very,
like I
let's put
love
on a
doing
show.
producing. Yeah, exactly. Let's put on a show. Like, what can we do? You know? But and as an artist, as a solo artist myself, as a performer, like I feel like I can't do what I do without those other artists as well.
Mm.
Like me as a boylesque performer, I still collaborate with a costume designer and a prop maker or someone who makes fans or someone who makes pasties or whatever. Even though I know I can do a lot of things myself, I would rather work with other people to make it that much more interesting, right?
Mhm. Well, you mentioned the phrase boylesque, which is coming up again in our circles, meaning the industry, as as a topical word. I grew up not knowing really boylesque, and then when somebody said what I did was boylesque, I was sort of like, well, that seems somewhat othered and separatist. So I didn't like it for a while, and then I started, working with Tigger and sort of seeing the usefulness of it. Do you still feel that boylesque is sort of its own identity, whether, I mean, probably composite of many identities, but do you still think that it's something that is its own vibe?
I think so. I think it's important actually to have that kind of separation of distinguishing the difference between a male representing person and a female representing person. I think it's beautiful that it's blended as well, but I still feel like it's important to know that uh, men can still do what we do. I think it's like, like if you just put a sticker on something and call it burlesque, then men are excluded from that, whether however they present themselves, if it's as a man or masculine or however you want to identify it as being non-feminine,
Mhm.
then they're excluded. So I feel like having that term allows the window to be open for male representing artists to embrace the beauty of burlesque. And when I started too, I'm an old school person. So, and you are as well. We spoke about our ages. So back then, being a queer person when I was younger, I didn't have that open um acceptance that there is now, which is a
Sure.
beautiful thing.
Well, we're sort
Um
of we're sort of going back in time a little bit too now.
Yeah,
Eh,
exactly. I mean, I understand what you're saying with now too, with the climate of politicalness,
Yeah.
and it's horrible. But even still, like, I feel like when I started doing this, that was one of the reasons why I didn't want to go on stage in the burlesque scene was because there was nobody else that was doing
Mm.
it. There was very few people. You mentioned Tigger. Yeah, he
Mhm.
was like basically the father of male burlesque
Mhm.
was Tigger. He was the number one that I can think of and remember from when I first started. But when I was in Los Angeles, it was literally it was just me. There was nobody else that was doing it. And, you know, that term, um, I think some people might find it offensive now but it is what it is. It's a male representing person performing the art of burlesque. So but also too, I have the like, well, maybe that would have worked when I was in my 20s, but I'm a man now, so it's like it's kind of like me, this burly guy that gets up there, and they call me a boylesque performer. Sorry to disappoint you. It's not what you think it is. Um, but yeah, I'm okay with the term boylesque and burlesque. I don't know what other terms there are now.
We love to lesque things in general. So if we can add that to almost anything, it suddenly becomes a poster real easily.
Right.
So if we're doing like a horror show, suddenly it's horror-lesque. If we're doing I mean we have nerd-lesque, obviously. If we were to do a disco show, it probably would not be out of the realm to say someone would call it disco-lesque. Like we just for some reason that just lends itself very easily. I find it interesting, particularly as gender is becoming more and more of a public discussion. Obviously, trans people and non-binary people and people who are however one is has always existed with different language, different terminology, and also different protective qualities in who we tell that to, who we give that information to. And since we sort of have like this sort of transvestigating outside world that is really against people just living authentically, I find it really interesting to have these sort of conversations, which seem to be both separatist and yet very useful. So I think it's I would never want to tell someone that if you are a trans man, for example, that who gets uh, euphoria or at the very least self uh, satisfaction from using the word boylesque because that means something to you, great. I don't feel the need to automatically strike words. I guess the what I would be looking for is just determining the use, the point, and how we use them. But we have this sort of complicated right now because Best Boylesque, as say the Miss Exotic World title, we now have Vicky Muffin, who is a Best Boylesque winner, who's now going to be going for the now known as M Exotic World title, uh, and that just hasn't happened before. And I think it's cool that it's never happened before. I would like more things that have never happened before to frankly happen in burlesque personally. Um, but I think that the getting stuck on phrasing and getting mad at people because either they use them or don't want to use them. I don't know. I think that there's more nuance, and I think discussion is healthy.
Oh, I agree. I feel like having the conversation is always good because when like I was saying, when I first started, there wasn't very many men that did what I do. So for me to be accepted by the audience,
Hmm.
um, I kind of molded my stage persona for their comfort.
Hmm.
So, for example, when I knew I was going to get on stage back then, when I did a show at a bar that was a hole in the wall in the middle of downtown LA or wherever, the people who went to go see the show, they were there to see chicks take off their clothes, right? And have some beers and see this girl shake her boobies. That's, I mean, I know it sounds horrible to hear that and say that now, but that's what it was. And that's how it kind of still is in some places, in some people's minds.
Yeah.
So they didn't want to see a queer Latin guy go up there and take off his clothes and get naked and try to be sexy.
The
Like
fools.
the homophobia that
Yeah.
was out there, it was not accepting. And maybe it was to a certain extent, but they weren't there to see it. They didn't pay a ticket
Right.
to go see that, or they weren't there to see that. So for me, when I was kind of thinking like, well, I want to dance, I want to perform, I kind of molded like myself with these rules that I had to abide by in order for them to want to come back to see me again, right?
Hmm.
Or to not get booed off stage, which was always a fear I had for, I want to say, even the first 5 years of me performing, because you just never know what kind of, if I went out of town to a different city, they didn't know me. I was the only guy on the
Yeah.
on the list. So I did things like I always did character heavy stuff. Like I did characters, like I was a hobo to try to make them laugh, you
Hmm.
know, or I would be very theatrical and tell them a story, like I was a matador and I was a magician in one of my acts where I popped balloons and I wanted to entertain them and enthrall them in a story of a character that they were like really interested and entertained by what I was doing. And then by the end of my act, I was naked and they had no idea that that even happened. Right. So seeing that, I mean, that's where I'm coming from as a queer male
Mm.
in the industry. That's how I started. And
Yeah.
I kind of stuck with that, those guidelines that I kind of created for my character throughout my entire career. Even to this day, I kind of still have those in my brain of what is acceptable or not acceptable for me as an artist on stage. But things have blossomed and become so beautiful with gender fluidity, and sexuality is becoming more accepting, like legally and governmentally, and just so many different ways of it being accepted that the artists that are there now,
Hmm.
it's beautiful. And I wish that I could have had that welcoming party and stage for me when I started. Um, but I didn't. So I'm glad that it's there now. So, back when I started, it was just burlesque. That was it. And then, oh, there's a boy doing it. So I guess we'll call it boylesque.
Hmm. Yeah.
So
Yeah, when
So I
I
have a good, feeling about that kind of stuff just because I'm so old and
it's comfortable.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. So, as I said, I didn't have anybody really pointing me in any direction. So, I was a cast director of a troupe as well. We were troupe oriented because we came out of a Rocky Horror cast. So, we were used to there sort of being 1 to 2 people in charge of choreography, training, teaching you where to do this. Oh, this is how that scene runs. So, we just applied that to burlesque. And since we were performing in very specific circumstances, there were years before we even really, I think, viewed ourselves as sexual, I guess. I mean, there was just sort of like a cartoonish, sort of Betty Boopish vaudeville aspect. So there would be bras and panties and, the occasional pasty, frankly. But I didn't show my bare ass on stage for years, and I feel like I wasted a lot of time.
Yeah.
I,
Yeah, going back to that being sexy thing,
yeah.
that was a thing that was on my list as well. Like, I'm not gonna go out there to try to be sexy. Like, I would just get tomatoes thrown at me. Like, it wasn't my basis for being an artist on stage in the burlesque scene. It was more about entertaining the audience and
Mhm.
wowing them with tricks or a character or a story more so than it was about look at my naked body or the tease,
Right.
even though the tease was still in there, of course. But it wasn't always all about that. It
Hmm.
was more about the humor or the
Hmm.
story or the character.
It's odd because it really wasn't for a very long time, and it only somewhat is now. Even like doesn't this turn you on? Like, doesn't
That's what
this
I believe too for
right?
myself. I'm not sexy. Like, maybe you think I'm sexy, but if you do, thank you. But I'm not trying to turn you on or anything.
But if you do, you sort of find it endearing sexy, or like an innocent sexy, or a non-toxic masculine sexy, or something like that. There's usually like that kind of thing where I see a lot of women in burlesque sort of have that expectation to be a little bit more aggressive on stage, and that's hot. Like that's what like the audience really goes for that. And when a lot of women play demure, they may find it to be attractive, but it's not as frankly as hot, I guess. And then when you see what most people would presume to be a man on stage, unless you're doing like a magic Mike situation, the audiences more seem to be responsive to someone who's a more even keel with how sexy they present themselves. I don't know if a lot of audiences, at least in my experience, want that kind of haughtiness. They'd rather be invited, if that makes sense.
It does. I agree too. Especially like there was an act when I was younger back in the day that I did do that I was like purposely overly sexy
Sure.
to be more hitting on the comical side as opposed to really trying to seduce you. Like it was so over the top that it was so ridiculously funny that it wasn't even that middle kind of layer of sexy. It was like, I am so sexy because you're gonna love me. That it was so ridiculous that it wasn't sexy. It was very funny.
Mm.
Um, but as time has gone on, and just being on stage and in the industry and in the atmosphere, I'm sexy now, I feel like. So I'm okay with that. But never trying too hard to be, at least.
Hey, this is Victor, and I would really like to thank the folks on the Patreon. It really does make a difference. I know this is one of those times in the world where we're like, who the hell has the $20? Who has the $5? Who has a buck? Well, if you do, thanks. If you can throw it at me. I understand that we have a lot of other concerns out there, what with social justice and also groceries. So if you happen to have it and you want to throw some dollar bills at the entertainment art that We Burlesque and Viktor Devonne puts out there, it helps me a great deal because there are some very real bills that come with podcasting. It's a lot of fun. It's all I know how to do, except dance around on stage and put on shows. but it does cost money. Ugh. But there are some folks who throw me some dollars on Patreon, and I would like to give them a lot of love. And those names today are Goosey Gander, Roxy Reverie, Faye Havoc, Tiffany Lane, Madam E, iRed, Shimmy LaRue, Curly Bright, Oliver Swisky, Sebastian Crane, Purris Stilton, Alex Colad, Bo Britches, Luna Delight, and Stormageddon. Y'all mean the world to me. Thank you very, so very, 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 very much. If you would like to support the pod by doing so, you can go to patreon.com/weburlesque. If you don't have the dollars, I understand. You can also go like, follow, subscribe on all the things, even if you don't listen, but also listen. Please do that too. And comment. Not only do I see those comments and feel really good about myself, but the people that are parts of these shows get to see those comments and know that what they're doing resonates in the world. So thank you very much. Be well. So you mentioned performing in front of people who weren't necessarily expecting a guy on stage as well as part of the collective, and I've been there absolutely. Less frequently nowadays, although it does happen that often we are inadvertently tokenized, and a lot of times. But as someone who sort of had to perform and sort of get a lot of times the guys in the audience on your side that much more, would you ever experience a host ever sort of making the novelty of your act or of your body being out there to sort of be like the selling point, or it was, as you said, you sort of snuck it in? Would they also kind of just sneak it in?
I never really had that happen for me. Like I feel like the scene was so small when I first started that once I became in other people's shows, it was more like, oh, they kind of knew that I was around. So, and plus my acts weren't very they weren't very sexy. So it wasn't I never had the experience of a host trying to make
Amp
me.
it up.
Yeah, they never try to amp it up. Plus, I never wanted them to at all. I never wanted that. Luckily, when I started in my own show, so my MC
Right.
knew better, or me, I
Right.
was the MC myself. So, but sometimes I get that people come up to me, or even back then, like when I first started, there would be like after a show, after I performed, I would get the straight cis male would come up to me and say like, wow, you did a really cool job, like that was neat, like that
Yep.
was cool, that was so fun. So I really appreciated that
Yeah.
because I was really trying to get that, because I, like, I wanted them to come back to another show if it was mine, or I wanted them not to be turned off or unentertained. I'm an entertainer. Like I want to entertain people regardless of what they're there to see or not to see. So that was always a hope for myself as an artist. And I honestly feel like my little guidelines of what I chose to present on stage really worked.
Mm.
And even though it was kind of like sheltering myself from expressing who I was or what I wanted to do, I still am thankful that I didn't, because especially really early on at that time, there were other male performers who were performing in burlesque shows, and they didn't follow those guidelines that I had in my secret head,
Mhm.
that they kind of did the things that they do now,
Mm.
but back in like 2000, and they didn't last,
Yeah.
right? They weren't successful. They didn't stick around. They weren't getting booked because maybe it just wasn't as accepting back then, which it wasn't. So,
No,
you
and also
know,
we all come from different mindsets. So there are obviously also performers that have come and gone because they don't have the temperament to also be professional backstage, or don't have the temperament to do all of the work, because we're very frequently our own administrative work. We're our own agent, we're our own editor, we're our own costumer sometimes. We also have to bring just the acting skill to the stage, and then the world is also falling apart around us. So there's so many things that I think as artists slash entertainers we have to be capable of, and also give hopefully don't burn ourselves the fuck out. That you need to have both a thick skin as well as an enduring spirit, and then also be a nice person. Like I think that also sometimes gets in the way too, because we have obviously seen performers come and go because they didn't turn out to be really nice people as well.
Yeah, that's true as well. I feel like a lot of the artists that started back then didn't have the same mindset as me either.
Sure.
Like, I really wanted to do
I mean,
this.
how could
Like,
you know? How could you necessarily
right,
know what was to
right.
come in the future?
Yeah. I feel like not that what they did wasn't important for the scene, because I believe everybody who wants to perform should and can. Um, but I just feel like my drive was a little bit different than some of
Hmm.
the males that were around the same time as when I started. Like they were mostly like lovers of female performers,
Often.
or friends, or they did a duet, or things to that effect. And
Hmm.
maybe they lasted a little bit. They did a couple shows here and there, and you know but I was like, I want to go to New York. Like, I'm going to perform in festivals. I'm going to the Burlesque Hall of Fame. Like, I'm going to go to Vegas. Like,
Yeah.
so I feel like that was what my drive was as an artist. And I feel like that's another reason why they didn't have that same drive. They were just like, oh, this is just fun, or
Yeah.
whatever the
Well,
case may be.
now that sort of seems to be the expectation, is that there seems to be, if you don't want to go for the Burlesque Hall of Fame, or if you don't want to travel, or if you don't want to hit a lot of these milestones, then not that we look down upon them, but that I believe that a lot of performers feel that they have to push themselves for that, even if it's unrealistic or it's um, financially irresponsible. Very frequently, is that we have that somehow if we don't do those things, we don't hit those strides. Why even do it?
Right.
And that's not fair to ourselves. That's really not. Particularly because there's always going to be way more of us than there are stages for us to be on.
Oh, that's for sure.
So, yeah. As a uh, as a queer person in burlesque, did you find that you were either accepted more by the women in the audience because you were either non-threatening, or were you more omnisexual on stage anyway, where you have to sort of make everyone believe that everyone had a chance?
Well, everybody has a chance. Uh, but that's a good question. I never really thought about that. I feel like because I was a producer and I was in the scene as an audience member
Hmm.
first, like I was a fan. Um, and also too, just because I am queer, that I women feel safe around me. So I really enjoyed that aspect about being gay, is that women are safe with
Hmm.
me. Um, but on stage, I did things that were not necessarily that you can tell I was gay, but I didn't.
We could tell, but I'm kidding. I'm
Yeah,
kidding. I'm kidding.
I wasn't hiding it. Like I didn't. I've always been myself. Let's
Mm,
just put it that way.
sure.
And even when I was on the mic, where you can hear my gay voice, like I was just who I am. I've always been me, and that's just who I am. Um, so I've always been open with sexuality and queerness for myself and the others around me. But I feel like my characters on stage were more so masculine than queer.
Mm,
Um, but you get back again, that was because I didn't want to have any confrontation from people in the audience that didn't like what they were seeing, or whatever the case could have been, for a horrible situation that could have gone, because putting my artists, my performers in jeopardy because of an audience member not liking my queerness,
hmm.
right? I know that sounds so weird to say now, but back then it was something that you had to think about
Yeah.
as far as like your safety as a queer person.
I mean, certainly we're seeing this with a lot of folks that are being targeted by either legislation or by how they exist in spaces. Again, the sort of just viciousness online and sort of folks who are really who really just don't like gay people.
Yeah,
They've never had quite such a megaphone as they have right now, and they're emboldened, obviously, by this current administration to be their worst. And because who's gonna come for them?
right.
And I don't even feel that us being Californians, and I know I came from the East Coast, uh, but now I'm a Californian. Check the card. This is where I live. Um, it's we don't even have Newsom necessarily with the full strength to protect us as I thought a lot of us assumed we would. And that's fucked up. That also sort of feels like, oh, we were supposed to be okay. I guess we're all in this together. Really, really, really. Um, mm, yeah. So as someone who took some time off before then, you obviously you traveled, you made it to places. Did you ever compete for Best Boylesque?
No, I never did. I I did perform at Burlesque Hall of Fame in
Okay.
the Movers and Shakers show. So that was fun. But I don't really also too, like, I feel like my style is, even the way that I my little guidelines of what I decided to do um is not the norm for what people think of for boylesque. Like, I feel like it's gone to the extremes now. Like, a lot of queer, uh, gender bending performers are kind of like what's expected now of a boylesque performer. Or, like you said, the Magic Mike type guy who's got like very nice body of muscles and six pack and does like push-ups off a chair and whatever the case may be.
Sure.
I feel like I'm kind of like in the middle, where I'm not like that masculine, but I'm not that feminine either.
Uh-huh.
So I feel like I'm kind of like in the middle of the the scene, and I feel like sometimes people might think that it's boring. They either like one way or the other. So it's kind of hard for me to want to go up against somebody else who I feel like is not really the same type of style as I am, to try to say I'm better or they're better to go up against them. Does that make
Right.
sense?
Yeah. Well, because even as you were the first Mr. Hollywood Burlesque, correct?
I
So
was.
yeah. And as Mr. Hollywood and Mr. Leading Man has now been blended together, and the categories have shifted since Lily von Stupp gave the reins to Misspent Youth, or however that was acquired. I don't mean to indicate that that was given. That's not what I mean. But since those hands have shifted, a lot of the titles have either combined. There still is a Mr. Hollywood, and there still is a Miss or Ms. I don't remember how they phrase it, but a lady version of that. And I found that even at the last festival that I was watching, that there were so many commentaries on masculinity in the Mr. category that involved gowns or involved makeup or involved this sort of gender blending. And I thought that we are at this point where see it almost to the point of these distinctions. I don't even know what mask presenting means per se, because how am I going to say hello, cat on the screen? Audience
Oh,
at home,
this is Charlie.
there's a beautiful orange baby on the screen. Um, that I don't even always know what femme presenting means. I mean, we just sort of have these expectations, I guess, in our own minds. Um, and for a very long time, sort of like the male burlesque uniform was like the three-piece suit and possibly a fedora, possibly a oh, what is Trilby is the other one. And then as we've seen the peacocks emerge and
They have,
flourish.
yes. Yeah, because I was a judge for this past 2005 Hollywood Burlesque Festival for, the panel of judges judging the performers. And I noticed that as well. Like, this category, like you said, the peacocks have emerged and it's so gender bending that I feel like, honestly, like with some of these competitions or these festivals having these categories, like who cares? Like we're all so beautifully different
Yeah.
and yet the same. Why can't we just have one category? And why do we have to have categories in the beginning to begin with?
I think because we want to spread the joy around, but I find
Yeah.
the gendering very frequently, I think, gets in the way of that.
I think so too. Especially right now, I feel like that's a heated topic, which we all have our opinions
Sure.
about, and I feel like everybody is, right to have their opinions. But
No, not
I,
everyone. No, I'm kidding.
I tend to look more so at the art than I do the gender.
Sure.
So if it's a great entertaining piece that has thought and design and character and development, then it's a winning act, regardless of what gender you identify yourself as.
Yeah, and that was the thing also is that watching the last several years of the Hollywood Burlesque Festivals, particularly since we have those titles in common. Um, the year that I won, I did not have that promise to me, and I couldn't win shit on the East Coast. I've always said. So I had done my little bits, just little bits of competition every now and then, but for the most part, I hadn't really been given that opportunity, or I don't know. I think it took a minute for people to take advantage in the clubs of, no, we'll give a title. It'll be great. It'll be great advertising. And then to sort of come here and then be welcomed, really. The title and the sash was lovely. The crown is right there. It's very important to me. But the backstage and the audience of other performers and like cheering, that was the great gratification of it all. Like, okay, moving here did turn out to be a good idea. Thank goodness. Because really, in the end, isn't it where it's meant to be for the audience, isn't it? We're
Yeah,
also
I
meant.
mean, as a producer, that's where I always fall back on.
Mm,
I always say, we are putting on this. Well, I'm not going to say everybody does this because it apparently is obviously that they don't. But I put on my shows for the audience.
mm,
They're the ones who buy tickets, they're the ones who pay our pay. So if they're not going to come see a show, then I'm going to only produce something that they want to see.
mm.
So that's just the way the business works.
Sure.
There's always those special, instances where it could be, oh, we need to do this, we need to do this, we need to have that type of performer, we need this. And I'm like, yeah, us too, as curators, it's our job to kind of give the guide of what is supposed to be accepted as well by giving the stage to that person to be able to be seen.
Hmm.
Because how is the audience going to change their mind if they are not open to seeing, if they're never seen what else there is out there, right?
Or themselves, frankly. I think a lot of
Right.
producers give themselves the short shrift by not admitting that a lot of times the audience is reflected in the cast, and therefore they feel they're more inclined to then come back or more inclined to cheer on if it's not, because it's not a freak show. It's not they're not at the zoo. They're actually seeing real flesh and blood people doing things that they, if we do our job right, wishing that they could also do. Like that's the thing, isn't it? Is we're sort of selling the fantasy.
And I always
Um,
feel too, burlesque has always been a scene or an industry that always has been welcoming to all kinds of people. So that alone, the definition of burlesque alone,
mhm,
is this broad blanket and umbrella of beautiful, diverse people, right?
mhm,
However, I do want to mention this as well because I feel like a lot of people who are very vocal about criticizing shows or producers or events for excluding or not including, you have to remember too, as a producer, I'm hired by a certain venue or a person who wants me to put together a specific type of show. So me as a producer, my job is to make them happy. So if they want this, then I'm going to give them that, right? So a lot of people forget that. Like, well, I've been doing this for a very long time, and I've worked for a lot of different venues, and I've worked for a lot of different people who want me to put on certain types of shows. So my job is to make them happy, because otherwise I'm not going to get paid. Therefore, the people in the show aren't going to get paid. So I just want to have everybody remember that as well when they're so quick to judge and criticize. That, it's not always a space for everybody. Some things are specific to some things, and some things are specific to other things. And unfortunately, not everybody can fit into every single specificity that there is out there. So,
And it's not always clear when those attempts have been made, if that's not the outcome. If certain people aren't available or were asked and then couldn't, or if that representation would have been there if there wasn't for something else. Very frequently, no one sees those long lists of emails necessarily that a producer has gone through to make a show happen. So they don't necessarily know what iteration they ended up getting.
right.
I think we do have responsibilities to push back on again what some venue owners might think would be best, and I think having those communications are very important. But I do know what you mean. I do understand where you're coming from. As someone who runs their own festival now, how do you feel saying no to people? I mean, not that you hadn't always before, but in that you had the ability to see all of these fabulous people that honestly you probably wished you had room for, but you only have so many slots. How easy or difficult is it for you to curate something like what Seduction Burlesque has become?
You know, it's it's always a joy to see the amount of artists that would love the opportunity to work with me in a production that I put on.
Mhm.
But I always got to remember the reason why so many people want to work with me is because of what I've been doing. So I've obviously been doing something right by putting together shows that everybody wants to be in, even though not everybody might not have the opportunity to. But so I always hold true to that. I'm like, well, I
Mhm.
must be doing something right if all these people, I have this all these booking inquiries or people asking how they can audition or be part of my shows, which I'm so thankful for. Um, but I don't feel it's very hard to
Mhm.
judge. Like I'm very, I'm an audience member. That's my
Sure.
first thing is that I love being entertained. So I want to see a show that's amazing from beginning to end, including before the show starts. Like I want to have an immersive experience as an audience member. And I like variety and putting together a festival is fun and also heartbreaking because there are so many people that I would love the opportunity to work with, but like you said, there's just not enough space, there's not enough money,
Mhm.
sometimes I can't afford people or sometimes the show's overbooked or whatever the case may be. Um, but I love it. I like being a curator. I like having choices. I like, you know, choosing who I want to work with. I take a lot of things into consideration as well. Like I don't just take into the fact that the act is good.
Mhm.
That's of course what I first look at is the act. Like it doesn't matter how many years you've been performing or how many days you've been performing or how many awards you've won or titles you have. It doesn't matter. Like I'm looking at your act. Like is it a good piece of entertainment? But also too, like I take into account like your backstage etiquette because I'm a theater kid. So, if you're unprofessional or a bitch backstage, like I don't want to deal with that. And I don't want to
Mhm.
put my friends and my artists and my staff that I work with to deal with things like that, you know? So backstage etiquette is always a huge thing. Reputation is a good thing that I take into account. Like if you're creating drama online or bad mouthing people or someone's bad mouthing you, like I don't want to deal with that. I'm old. Like I'm not here for that. I'm here for a show.
Yeah.
Like this is
Yeah.
entertainment, you know? I am very professional and you know, people love that I am. So, you know, if it's hard to be in a show of mine or a festival of mine, I apologize, but that just means that you got to raise the bar for yourself, I guess. I don't know. But I always love to have the opportunity to work with a lot of different artists. And you know, sometimes I'm curating a show that it just won't fit, you know, like it just doesn't make sense. Or like I said, like I'm doing a specific show for a specific person. So, you know, I'm sorry it doesn't fit into that spectrum of what I'm trying to curate, right? But that doesn't mean that I might not have an opportunity to have you in this show. Oh, this is going to be great for you, or whatever the case may be.
Hey, this is Viktor Devonne, and I like socks. I always like socks. In fact, I like socks so much that I don't match them because life is too short. Not because life is too short to find the other one that matches it, but because I want people to see how many socks I have. And I don't always take off my shoes, but when I take off my shoes, I want you to see at least 2 examples of the quality that I am drawn to. And that is why I shop at Foot Clothes. You can get 10% off your first order at footclothes.com and enjoy the luxury, style, and utter ridiculousness that is Foot Clothes. I encourage you to do so, and I want you to do it right now. And I want you to feel comfortable not having those socks match. Get into it. Feel right about it. Take pictures. Make some money off of it. I don't need to see it. You can send those the way that you need to. But you have fun out there. That's footclothes.com. Promo code Viktor Devonne, lowercase, all together. So what do you look for when you are looking at Exquisite, the Burlesque Festival?
Well, for Exquisite Burlesque Festival, that's just it. It has to be exquisite. Like, just look up what the definition is, and then that is what you need to submit in order to be considered. But, you know, I look at, like, costume. I look at the story. I'm a theater person, so I look for character. Does your act have a meaning or a beginning, a middle, and an end? Is there structure to it? You know, like your comfort availability, your comfortness on stage as well, like your confidence. That's always key. I always look for things that are different, like innovation is a big thing for me. I mean, even the little honors that we give at Exquisite, that is also too like what I look for. Like, so one of our honors is innovation. So like, let me see something that is done differently. Like we all take off a glove. Like, let's see you take it off a different way than just the middle finger in your mouth and pull it down, right? Or inspiring, like, is it dramatic? I'm a sucker for the dramatics, man. Like I love a serious per piece that is like takes my breath away and is like classic, and I love the emotion and the drama. I love all that on stage, not backstage.
Yes.
But you know, I look for that. Also too, for Exquisite Burlesque Festival, we are so different than other festivals too. Like I also want, like I go back to my little saying of my question that I always like to ask my artists. What have you never done on stage, but you've always wanted to? And then you got to look at why. Why haven't you done it? Well, it's because I can't have my song has to be only 4 minutes, or there's a cutoff for this, or I can't have props, or I can't have it won't fit backstage, or I can't have this, or whatever the case may be. I always say, fuck those rules and let's do it. Like, you should be able to do whatever you want to do on stage with all your heart and all your soul and do it beautifully. Like, I feel like that makes you a better performer, right? Like, if you have an idea or something you want to do, I feel like it's, do it. Let's do it. Let's work together and see how I can help you do it. So that's what I look for.
Do you find that you have become a mentor figure, either officially or unofficially, to any performers?
I've been told that when people work with me, like for a collaboration, that they really have a really good time, and that um they thank me. They're like, I never thought that I could do something like this, or, and to me, it makes me sad because I'm like, why? Like, why have you had so many restrictions put on you? Who put those on you? Like, this is an art that you should be able to do whatever you want to do, no matter what it is. Because I like to work with a lot of artists that they're all different styles too. Like, I've worked with nerdlesque, I've worked with like circus, I've worked with classic, I've worked with neo. So it doesn't matter your style. What matters is your passion and what you want to present. So but yeah, I mean, I've had a few people that take my class that I do. um I teach a workshop, so I just really want to try to push performers to do more than what they think they're capable of.
Mhm. What have you not gotten to? What on,
Myself?
yes. What on stage have you not gotten a chance to do that you would like to do?
Well, there is one thing that I've always wanted to do, and I might have the opportunity to do it. Unfortunately, it's for circus because I used to be an aerialist. But I haven't been training in a very long time, so I'd have to get back into training to be able to do this. Um, but I have a circus show called Cirque du Désir that I work with the Stage Global, and we produce a Valentine's Day show. And we have this new venue that has a rig point that goes up and down. So the rig can come down to you, and then you can get on it, and then it'll take you up. So I've always wanted to do that, like when I was in circus, because usually in circus, like in a lot of venues in Los Angeles or in this scene, this circuit, the rigging point is kind of it's static.
Mhm.
So it's only at a certain height and that's it. And you just go on and you swing or you stay there, right? But to have like a Vegas show where they go up in the air and then they come back down, would have been super cool to do. And I have this show now that we've been doing it at this venue for like the past couple years, and they have a rig point that goes up and down. But every artist who's been on it, they say how scary it is. And I totally understand and agree how scary that is. But yeah, that's something that I've never been able to do that I want to do.
As someone who, and obviously you are a cat dad as well, is there more than one cat in the household right now?
Yeah, I have two cats. The one who is bugging me the most right now, this is Charlie.
Hello, Charlie.
But I have another cat too. She hates people. She's kind of like me and avoids social gatherings as much as possible. So she won't bug us, but
But this one wants to be the star.
yes, this is my little social butterfly. So
Oh, such a
he,
baby.
he is
Oh.
definitely a bug.
Besides the administrative side of work, putting on a show, being in shows, returning to the stage, what else what else excites you in this world? Do you have any other activities, or I dare use the word hobbies that consume your life?
I feel like the reason why because I started doing production.
Hmm.
So I was a theater kid, and then from there producing and kind of running the show and curating events of different artists and working with people. And then I got into film school, so I've learned so much about film. I've done indie films as a director, as a screenwriter, as a casting director. I've done it all. Um, so I feel like burlesque has been like the one industry that kind of brings all my favorite hobbies together. So I really love crafting and like costuming, and I really love music and sound design. So I like to like edit my songs or other people's songs or create a show where there's sound effects and like I'm listening to like blending in all this. So burlesque is like totally like encompasses everything that I love, all my little hobbies, and plus including sex. Like I'm a sex fiend, so I really am into sex, and I feel like that burlesque is obviously combines the sexiness of it all too. So I feel like it's a perfect industry for all my hobbies. All I get to do all the hobbies I like to do just for one particular thing. So
Sort of blends it.
blends it perfectly.
Um, so when you were taking time off, was it just the world falling apart that necessitated that?
Yeah, it was actually. It was 2019. Um, we were actually like at the top of our game for seduction. My team and I were going to do Exquisite, like it was our first. We were getting ready to do it. We were putting that festival together, and then the world just kind of shut down and everything stopped. So, in essence, everything, including me as an artist on stage, stopped. So, um, when it was over and we were trying to, come back to the stage as far as like live performances go, I just wanted to concentrate on the show. I was
Mhm.
like, I need to bring the show back. I need to have a stage for all these performers and all these artists to be on. So that was my goal. Like I stopped performing. I was like, I don't care. I just want to concentrate on bringing the show back and what I need to do to make that happen. Right.
Mhm.
But in doing so, and I was happy with that. I was fine. I was okay with just concentrating on the show. And then once it once it came down to it, I was like, oh, I guess I stopped performing. That's okay. And then I was like, well, what was my last performance even? Like, I don't even remember what it was.
Mhm.
So I looked back and I was like, oh, well, I guess that was my last performance. But then as I was thinking about it, I was like, no, I don't want to go out like that. Like, not that that show was bad, not that my performance wasn't great. Like, I just didn't know it was going to be my last ride,
Mhm.
right? So I decided, I was like, that's not going to happen. I'm not going to let that happen to myself. I'm going to come back and perform again. And so that's what I'm doing this year is my performance year. Um,
How's it going?
It's going great. It's going good. I created a new act, um, which going back to my whole like, early 2000s rules for being a queer guy in a world of straight women performing. I kind of looked at that list of like my usual things that I do and crossed some things off because I never got to do certain things that I want to do and that I feel like a lot of um, peacocks, as you say, have been doing now on
Yeah.
stage and have been accepted and has been welcoming. So
Hmm.
I feel like I have more of a queer feminine touch that I'm able to present proudly and with confidence. So
We are bringing that noun version of the word exquisite back because as you said, the if you look up what the definition of exquisite is, there is a version of exquisite which basically means dandy. So there is
yeah.
there is sort of a permission that of flamboyancy in male performers, whether or not they are gay, bi, or heterosexual, or not anything for that matter, which I think is really cool because again I think a lot of very focused on what forms of masculinity we're presenting on stage or what or these archetypes that we sort of allow ourselves to get stuck with. Like, well, we have to do it this way because we're playing a mailman. Oh, well, we have to do this because this is the type of character that I'm playing. But we've seen such great performers, whether it's, Pinot Noir, Faggoty Randy, Samsonite, who are, of course, like the gold standard, or Ray Gunn or Tito Bonito, or all of these really fabulous performers of a variety of masculine expression and who are seem to be very comfortable blurring those lines and not really worrying about as not being perceived as butch per se. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. And I feel
Yeah.
like that's great for each individual person.
Hmm.
Like, I feel like we all have our own kind of stigma about ourselves and what we are comfortable with
Sure. Well,
doing.
we as gay guys often too,
Right.
how we're viewed. Yeah.
So, like, for example, one of the things that I had on my list back in the day was I only performed to songs that had either no lyrics, or if there were lyric vocals, it was a man's voice only.
Okay.
So I never performed to a female singing. So for this new act, the vocals are female for me. So for me, that's like a big
That
thing,
is a big thing. Yeah.
like as far as like my career, if you want to call it that, in this industry. And then
I think we can safely say career.
thanks. Also too, I'm performing with feather fans
Uh-huh.
because, that's always been so feminine and kind of, more not so masculine.
Sure.
So I'm doing that, and I'm wearing pasties. I've never worn pasties before in performing. So I'm doing these little tiny things that nobody is even going to know are important to me. But,
No.
I feel
Yeah.
like, it's I'm able to express myself a little bit more queerly as I can and be accepted. And um so yeah, so it's fun to have this new performance piece and to come back to the stage to perform. But also too, I'm coming back with a different mindset. Like, I've been in this industry for so long now, and I've seen and experienced what it can and cannot do for me
Yeah.
as a artist or entertainer, or as a career with money behind it.
Mm.
So a lot of stuff too that I used to take or hold a value, I don't it doesn't matter anymore. Like, it's I've matured so much in just a person myself, and you know I'm doing this more for myself than
Right.
anything else.
Right.
Like, this is my last ride, so I'm doing events that I want to do.
Mhm.
Like, I'm not going to do shows that I don't need to do. Also too, because as a producer, like, I've pretty much produced an event that so many people want to be a part of that I can just be in it myself. Like,
Mm.
I don't feel like um a lot of people feel like certain events or certain shows are, they're gonna break their heart and they're gonna be so upset about not getting in or not doing things, and that's fine for them. But for me, I'm just like, this is just, I'm just gonna choose. For me, it's more about venues
Mm.
more than anything. I want to perform at certain venues or certain cities or certain events more so than I do need a working. Like, I don't need anybody's value of what they have for my career, because it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not making millions of dollars because I'm in or not in your show. So to me, it's more about my own self satisfaction of the things that I would like to do as an artist before I say goodbye to the industry. So
Is there a timetable for that, or are you just gonna run it till the wheels fall off?
I have a timetable of this year is me performing in like kind of locally based shows or events, and then the next following year is submitting to festivals that I want to be in and try to do. Um So yeah, there's and if I get picked up and people want to book me, then I'm not going to turn them down if it's worth it for me and if it's going to be a good time or that's what I'm looking at mostly is like the experience and having a good
Yeah,
time. Like I want to have fun. Like I'm not in it for the money because there is none. So I already know that as a producer and as an artist trying to get booked in other people's shows, like bitch, I know how much they pay. So and I know how much I pay. So it's not about that for me. At least now. Back
sure.
then it was when I was younger. Like, yeah, I had like that envy of like, oh, I want to be in that show, or they didn't book me, or I didn't get accepted. Like that wallowing is all real and true. And I think all of us have been through that. And I think it's good to go through that,
Mhm.
but I'm not gonna go through that. I just have a different mindset. I don't think it's anything that matters.
No, but yeah, I mean, it's
I hate
very
saying that
real.
because I know a lot of people are going to be like, But honestly, like, I apologize, like, not to rain on your parade, but I've been doing this for almost 25 years
Yeah.
and I'm still I've won awards, I've won titles. It's not anything it's not that big of a deal.
Hmm.
Like it really isn't. And I feel like the people who create all that drama and all that bickering and all of that he said, she said, I'm going to post this, I'm going to say this, they all kind of have that mindset of they think that they hold it higher in their lives than maybe some of us other people do.
Hmm.
Um, which is fine. We all did when we were wanting to be stars. Um, so I'm excited to come back because I have options you know, and I feel like too, like I don't need anything. So I don't need to do shows that I'm not happy with or that pay bad or the
Hmm.
venue sucks. Like, I've already did all that. Like I did that for years when I first started. Like that's kind of how it is, you
Hmm.
got to do all those shows. Um, but I'm not looking to do those. I'm just coming back for uh mainly to like experience like having a good time with my friends. That's what I'm looking forward to the most. Being a producer, I haven't been backstage. So I love being backstage and putting on my makeup and talking to everybody back there and talking about the shows as opposed to like, hey, where's that? Get the lights ready. Let's go. Someone's at the door that they're not on the list. They say they are, like running all over the place and taking care of business. And honestly too, Victor, I just want to show up.
Well, I mean, isn't that's sort of you've paid the dues essentially.
Yeah. Like
You've gotten the legacy.
not against any performer that just shows up and leaves, but I haven't been doing that. I'm the first one there, I'm the last one to leave. I spend hours and hours designing flyers, promoting and all that good stuff that it would just be so nice just to show up to some show, perform, hang out backstage and then leave.
Yeah,
So that's what I'm looking forward to.
it's not a comeback, it's a return. So-
Yeah, I mean, like, well, I honestly don't feel like, I mean, I haven't been on the stage since 2019. So 2019 was my last performance, up until this year,
Hmm.
25.
Where I've
So
seen
that
you.
was,
I saw you at
yeah,
Gwen show. Yes.
so that was a big break,
Yeah.
that was 19, 20, 21, 23, 24, 25. So like 6 years
Yeah.
without performing.
That's your
Um,
skin cells have all completely regenerated.
Yeah, exactly. I look a lot different than I did back then. So, but yeah, it's fun to come back, but I'm glad that I'm able to come back on my own terms and, you know, uh choose the shows I want to be in and work with people who I want to work with. And my act is so fun. I collaborated with so many different artists to create my performance piece. So I'm very proud of it because I want to make all those artists proud of who helped me. So yeah, it's going to be a good time.
I look forward to seeing what you bring to the stage in this new version of whatever it ends up being. So congratulations on on the return.
Thank
Uh,
you. Thank you.
and it's been really interesting getting to know you. As I said before we started, I feel like we had been sort of passing ships. You stopping performing in 2019 was the year that I won Mr. Hollywood. So we were, and then the world fell apart. And then sort of seeing each other back and forth often at LA shows. I got to get out there more. I'm aware that I do. It's just, there's just so much going on. So it's hard sometimes uh, to prioritize and also
Yeah,
to self-advocate.
I think we're all guilty of that as well. Um, that's also one of my goals is to get back out and see other shows and support a lot of other artists out there. Plus, too, as a curator of events, like that's how I see what I want to book. A lot of
Hmm.
people always ask me, like, "Oh, do you have hold auditions?" Like, I'm like, "No, I don't. I choose who I want to work with based on what I see."
Hmm.
So it's in order for me to do that, I got to go see shows.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I love going to burlesque shows. That's always where I started. I'm always a fan. First off, I'm always a fan of this show. So, but yeah, we should go to a show. There's so many, and if you ever want to go to one, let me know.
Yeah.
And listeners, if you ever want to go to a show, drop me a line. And performers, if you ever want me to see you perform in a show, invite me to your show. I just may show up and I'll show up with very judging eyes just for you.
Very good. So can you tell the folks before we say goodbye? And I appreciate your time. Can you tell people where they can see everything you've got going on, whether it's your productions or your wherever you find yourself performing, not at your own productions.
Yeah, you can. I'm on Instagram, so you can follow me on Instagram at Bobbie Burlesque. Also to my website, seductionburlesque.com has all the productions that I put on. But yeah, that's where you can find me. I'm on those. I'm on Facebook as well, but I feel like Facebook is not the norm for the kids nowadays.
It's becoming antiquated. Uh,
Yeah, so but I'm
and it's
on
also becoming
those.
live journal. Like it's no longer quite the networking site so much as these are my thoughts about what's going on in the world, insular and outer.
Yeah, but the next thing I'm doing is I am performing in the Moon Gems productions of the Gemstone Review for the Hollywood Fringe Festival.
Lovely.
So we're doing 3 weeks of a show in Hollywood. So you guys come check that out. I will be part of that cast. And yeah, that's the next thing I'm doing, and it's exciting. And then I'm traveling this year and next year. I'll be going to New Orleans. So I'm very excited about that. I've never performed in New Orleans, so I'm very
Same. I gotta get
excited.
there too. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, just look out for me. My goal is I want to perform in Seattle and Colorado and Albuquerque. So those are all cities that I'm going to be heading to. San Diego as well, and Palm Springs are in the works. So I'm going to have a great last ride. And hopefully, I want to go to all kinds of shows as well locally. So you'll see me in the audience as well.
Lovely. Well, I look forward to seeing what you have going on. Is Exquisite happening again this year?
Oh yeah, that's right. That too. So Exquisite Burlesque Festival will be back in 2026. We're looking at September instead of October. So look out for that. The applications will open earlier than they did in the past because we have so much time before the festival, like a full year.
Mm.
So in the past, it's just been like a couple months, like 6 months before. But we're going to open the applications earlier. So we have a lot more people who have the opportunity to submit and give us their feedback on what they'd like to see at the festival. So yes, exquisiteburlesquefest.com as well.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much. It's been lovely getting to know you. Although briefly, I feel like we barely scratched the surface, but
Oh, I
that's
know. I feel like we
okay.
could talk for hours. But
And
yeah, thank
so
you so much for
let's
having me on
let's
your
at some point do
podcast.
so. Let's at some point do so. Off the record.
Yes, definitely.
Well, thank you so much. I'll include in the footnotes those links that you've given us, and see you around. Folks at home, thank you for listening. And remember, like, follow, subscribe, do all the things, and do that for everybody else too.
Yeah, support everybody.
Please. All right,
Thank
darling. Thank
you.
you. Appreciate it. We Burlesque the Podcast, created, developed, and edited by Viktor Devonne. Podcast artwork by Logan Laveau. We Burlesque the Podcast cover art photography by Atticus Stevenson. Theme song, On a 45 by This Way to the Egress, used with permission. All incidental music via Pixabay under the expectation of fair use. Please visit WeBurlesquePodcast.com for notes on this and every other episode. Follow We Burlesque and Viktor Devonne on just about every platform, and support the podcast via patreon.com/We Burlesque. Don't got the cash? Please follow, subscribe, and give 5 stars on every platform you can get your hands on. It really does help. All original material is owned by Viktor Devonne and White Elephant Burlesque Corporation. All other materials property of their respective copyright. No infringement, while likely, is intended. This episode, and all episodes thereafter, are in memory of Lucky Charming. Miss you, friend. And that's it.
Woohoo!